A couple of things. By the way, I'm Patricia Parker, Arts for Art director, and the organizer of the Vision Festival. And thank you for coming. But what comes to my mind now, most of the time when I really listen to great music, is what makes it so what makes it so intense and a powerful experience is that you can hear in the way that they play that they're holding nothing back. They're giving you everything. It's what moves us. It's what challenges us. By the way, Joe McPhee won Lifetime Achievement, received the Lifetime Achievement Award 2 years ago. And he so deserves it.
Yeah.
I have to say though, pardon, the Vision Festival from the very first time, the very first festival I was there, I was one of the people in the audience, and I was amazed that such a thing could happen. And when Patricia told me about this Lifetime Achievement Award, I told her, no, give it to somebody else. There's so many other people, so much more deserving. And she said, no, you have to do this. And upcoming is Charles Gale, and I wish I could be here. I won't be able to be here for that. That's going to be amazing as well. So Charles Gale deserves it.
I agree, yeah. All right, and Gerald Cleaver.
Yeah.
Just keep it up. You'll get old enough. William Parker. Now, if I say anything about him, I'll just embarrass him because we're related. And I've been told that, sometimes, there's like any of that romantic kind of illusions or anything like that. It's not cool. So, and I know, I actually know I'm not cool, but I now can imitate it. So I'm not going to say more. But, except that I'm proud of this great artist.
Yeah.
But it's that combined commitment to giving your all, to really play in a way that makes a difference. And we're talking about a little bit about the legacy of Amiri Baraka. Because he gave everything all the time. It was really a life of commitment. And so we're going to have 3 panels at the Vision Festival that are dedicated to Baraka's legacy. And the greatest, they say that the greatest form of flattery is imitation. So that's actually the way I think of legacy. Legacy is not like, oh wow, he did something so great, and then you go off and not do anything. That's not really honoring, is it? I don't think. But that's just me. Maybe, I hope not. So, but that's the way that I think about it. It's really a call to imitate in the sense of giving your all without losing yourself. Giving your all to what you believe and who you can be. What you believe and who you can be. So the 3 things that are going to be mentioned, discussed in the first panel discussion, which takes place on June 13th at the Vision Festival, is self-determination, cultural identity, and free jazz. So, who wants to go first? The youngest.
Let me start by saying something a little different. What year was it? I think it was 2000 that the festival was over on St. Mark's. Was that 2000?
In St. Mark's? Yeah, it was 2000.
That was 2000. That was the first year that I participated. And I played with my old friend Craig Taborn and some other folks. One thing that I vividly recall being on stage in that packed place was that I felt home. You know, like I had never seen anything like that, for sure. There doesn't exist, well, there exists other types of free jazz festivals around the world, but to do it at home, I had just moved from New York the year before, and to be able to experience that at home was pretty incredible. To be around these people, I had met William maybe 4 years before in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I was a teacher, and he came with Bobby Zankel and Mara and Chris Bell. Do you remember that? Yeah. And you know, I found a direction already for myself, and seeing that many people enjoying this music, and I'm happy to see as many people as are here is very encouraging. What I want to say about, I guess I can talk about free jazz. I'll choose that one. You know, you got a panel. I don't know, that can go a million different ways. But what I want to say specifically about that is I don't really align with that word at all, because it's so grossly misused and abused. Really, when I think about, William and I were talking before we played, and I was talking about what it was like growing up inside the music, and everything. And so all my experiences with music come from like a very good, positive place. The reason I play the way I play is because I associate it specifically with places and with people, community. Seriously, it comes from there. Like everything that I do, it's related to that. It's like I can think about Amiri Baraka. There would be no Amiri Baraka if there were no black community. It would come from a completely different place. It wasn't just an intellectual exercise. The man was brilliant, right? He was. But I'm talking about free jazz. What I wanna specifically emphasize is that in 2000, when I met up with a whole lot of great people, I'd already met up with William, I'd already met up with Charles Gale, was already playing with Roscoe Mitchell, Matthew Shipp was in the band. A lot of people, a lot of New Yorkers were in the band, and then some Chicagoans. But it was really about every experience that I've had with music has to do with having elders around me, both in Detroit and in New York. Them being willing to allow me to play with them, grow and develop them, recognize my individuality, bring me along, let me do my thing. And I feel like the only way that things will continue is if we, all of us, emphasize that same kind of community and involvement with each other. Like you've reached out, you came here. We very much hope that you will continue to support in as many ways as you possibly can. As they say, give till it hurts. You will not go unrewarded. Like what we put out just now it's more like a thank you. So it's like a constant thank you. We're just playing this music because we can and we want to, and we won't stop until we close our eyes for good. So, if I were just to say one last thing, my idea of that free jazz, if I would put free jazz up on a chalkboard, I would put free jazz equals community. That's what I would say.
If I could amplify a little bit, if amplifying is the right word, what Gerald is saying here, about community. I have sometimes a problem with a phrase like free jazz because I'm not quite sure exactly what that means. Two things, free and jazz. If the music that we play is free, it's because it comes from community. For example, in my early recordings, the very first recording I ever made was called Underground Railroad. And it was dedicated to people like Harriet Tubman and a lesser known person, Denmark Vesey. There's a piece on there called A Message from Denmark, and a lot of people thought that it meant the country Denmark. Denmark Vesey was a slave, he was a revolutionary, and he was not about to turn the other cheek. In fact, he was about to start a kind of revolution on his own, and he was betrayed by some of his own people. But there was community. Harriet Tubman, that community, looked for the North Star, guiding people to the North out of slavery. Those kinds of ideas inspired my music and continues to. Freedom, it doesn't mean, when we're here, the three of us are playing together. We've never played together as a trio. This is the first time. What you heard here happening on the stage tonight was in the moment. You got it just like that. It's not easy and it's not difficult at the same time. It's a kind of contradiction in a way. It's easy because we three are free in our music. We know who we are. We know what we came from, and we have a pretty good idea of where we're going. The freedom that we have and that we share is that we listen to each other, for example, and we know that it's not about us as individuals, it's about us as a community, as a group. This is a community as well. And you are a part of that community. You are as important to us as we are to each other. We would be nowhere, nothing, if it was not for an audience. And we have to develop and grow an audience. And that's largely, or at least one reason why you're here. We're trying to grow an audience. And to grow that audience, we need people to participate and also to contribute financially, of course. We certainly need financial support. And the Vision Festival has been such an important part of developing this community. And it's why we're here and why we need to continue. To touch on Amiri Baraka, also part of that community. Again, one of my very first recordings, I was teaching at a course called Revolution in Sound at Vassar College in 1970 when I heard Amiri Baraka. Then Leroy Jones heard his Nation Time. It became kind of a signature piece for me. I took the idea of that and I made a piece. I don't think Mr. Baraka was too happy with that, but anyway, he was the inspiration. That was such a powerful statement for me that I carry it to this day. And expand it to more than just about Nation Time in terms of race, but in terms of the whole human experience. It's about race, it's about gender, it's about all of that. Because, in fact, none of us are free unless all of us are free. It's kind of a cliche in a sense, but could not be more true. And we need you. We need you in the community.
I'd just like to say that we're at a point in time where we don't really have to justify what we do. We've been doing it for over 50 years, and of course the pedagogy is there. Those who are interested, I can go over the pedagogy of where each rhythm comes from, and the idea of people say, well, structure and things like that. But my answer to that was there's nothing on earth that doesn't have any structure. Placement of sections of the music are different, you know, in the sense that freedom is that I am free as a musician to play any rhythm, any partial rhythm, any time, no time, partial melody. I can play a note, I can play a sound. See, when in music school, they teach you notes, but they don't teach you about sound. There's quite a difference between a note, a sound, a texture. There's a difference between, you notice that you hear the cry of, they don't teach you to get the human voice in your sound. They try to get you a pure sound that, now why would you want to teach someone to get a pure sound that's away from the human voice? You see, you communicate through the human voice. You don't communicate through pure sound like that. Okay, if you listen to the wind, you listen to anything from nature, it's never pure. Listen to the way birds phrase. And then, you know, you listen to Eric Dolphy, you listen to Bird, you see the connection. That this is not, it's world music because it comes from the world. We use rhythms from all over the world, we use melodies, and then we place things differently. Where you say, oh, well, there's the bass vamp, now the horn should be on top. No, the bass vamp can just be the drums and the bass. The horn doesn't have to ever come in. You know, or it can be just between, you know, you have choices to do what you want. What you do is, like Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. And our goal is to save lives. So when I'm playing this music, I use anything I need to use to make the music elevated so that it changes composition from sound to tone so I can enter into that tone world. And in that tone world is where the magic is. Okay, it's like falling in love. You ever fell in love? Well, it's like stepping into love, not falling into love. Who wants to fall in love? You know, you get hurt doing that. Anyway, so that's the process. You know, you'll hear me always talking about my influences. When I was studying with the masters, the first thing they told me is you can't pluck away evil. They said concentrate on the bow because you can't pluck away evil. You have to bow evil away. So why do you bow all the time? Because that's what the masters told me. Okay? And then my second lesson was I'm looking at each string as a band of light. Okay? This bow is a prism. When I bow, you say, why don't you play some notes? Why you keep playing on? Because I'm getting the colors. And then the colors are the nutrients that heal us. You see, there's a method to this. It's not just do what you want, just play what you feel. Everything can be cataloged and written about. And every musician can do this. If they want to, they can write down their theory of what they do. But we're not really concerned about that. You know, it's like when someone's hungry on the street, you come up with some food, they eat the food. They don't say, well, what's the recipe? You know, or how'd you cook this? You know, the thing is we want immediate hit the music. You know, so you'll hear, and then the including some of the great Native American composers that are not listed in the book from my point of view. You know, Oscar Pettiford, the Native American contribution to jazz was the 4/4 rhythm. Okay, and it was a mixture of that of Africa and Europe coming together to create a music. But anyway, this is sort of like the last phase of talking about structure because we say free jazz, but we don't know what jazz is. So how can we talk about free jazz and we don't even know what jazz is? You know, who can define jazz, right? Anybody know what jazz is?
Well, there's so many different interpretations of it. I mean,
Yeah.
what does it mean to who? What does it mean
Yeah.
to you or you or you or you? It means different things to
Right.
different people.
So just to conclude about community, and of course, I guess to elaborate on what Gerald and Joe said so eloquently, our whole life is about community. You know, it's about giving. I mean, if you go down to the Arts for Art office and see the way Patricia gets there at 11 o'clock in the morning and comes home at 11 o'clock at night. And they're working all the time, they're understaffed. They come, they on Monday nights, they come, they set the drums up after working all day. And it's just really a grassroots operation. But, so it needs support, what I'm saying. We need support to not take away the grassroots, but just to be able to get more workers in the fields, okay? Because we need your support and
Okay.
et cetera. Okay.
All right, I actually want to bring the questions into the audience, but before I do that, I have to make a couple of comments. First of all, I was encouraged to drop the word jazz about 5 years ago, and I understood it, but I felt really bad about it. And I tried to take it out, but it felt, I was conforming to some weird pressures of like, oh, jazz isn't cool anymore, and it has such a bad rep, just lose it. But I realized, especially watching things as time goes on, is that jazz also means black.
Yes.
And if you take that out, I mean, there's the monopolizing, or no, that's not the word. Yeah, it's one of the words, appropriation of culture. There's always this appropriation of culture, and it's really, really important to own what you do and have it owned where it comes from. And so you need that word. That word becomes important. And I was also, I was talked out of using free for many years because, you can't call it free because no one wants to pay. I'm not going to be free. It's not going to be free. I want to get paid. All right. So I said, all right. So we won't use free. And then I said, no. The way language is manipulated by others is, you have to define words. It's really, you have to define what you mean. And so, it can mean a lot of things. The word jazz can mean a lot of things. The word free can mean a lot of things. And I can do my whole thing. I actually have a definition of why I'll give you my riff. I was going to save it for last, but I'm going to throw it in here now quickly. And then I want to ask you questions. But the freedom in free jazz expresses an intrinsic yearning that everyone has to be their unique self. That's what freedom is really about, or that's what I'm really talking about. It's a freedom, the real freedom that we have is personal. And in fact, Charles Gale defines his music. He said one of the words he likes to use is he likes to call it personal music. What is his most unique self? And he also said that not everyone is free. And that you can imitate the sound of freedom, or what you think is the sound of freedom, but that doesn't mean your music or your art is free, or that you're free. So it's not a simple thing. Anyway, but yet it's everywhere. It's this urge to be that, and we need to honor it in ourselves. And it's why it's compelling to hear it. When you hear that in someone else, it can also make people nervous sometimes. Like they get uncomfortable. It's so free. Anyway, I have such admiration for Baraka. And I came out of like my family was, my mother was deep into social action, social responsibility. And so like I always related, actually when I first heard this music, to me it was like people who were, you know, trying to change the world. I heard that same energy in the music, only they were doing in this, but to me it was exactly the same. And when Baraka, in his incredible, unbelievable, articulate, that's right, his way of being articulate, he was able to nail it in so many ways. And he, in fact, I mean, like his books and his writing help articulate it for many musicians. There's not, I mean, these guys are pretty articulate, but not everyone's equally so. And hardly anyone is as articulate as Baraka was. I mean, he was like, words were his instrument. So, but like we're all, and I hear the word freedom, and it's starting to, it's like I hear it sort of bouncing up in weird places in our culture now. And so I would like to ask anyone if this is something, if it's either this idea of freedom or the idea of giving your all, or this idea of this music or cultural identity. How do we relate to each other? Who are we? Where do we come from? How do we make the lines that connect us to each other? I mean, anyone, please, anyone want to speak on any of, I just threw out a bunch of things.
Or ask questions.
Grab your favorite
or
topic.
I'd like to say something about freedom. Often people think freedom is, if you look at us, they say, well, those guys are just doing whatever they want. We're not doing what we want. We're listening to each other. We're sharing. And freedom has a lot to do with sharing. It's not just do what you want. That would be anarchy or something else, but it wouldn't necessarily be freedom. And I like Williams' concept of the tone world, which doesn't necessarily include words like freedom or jazz or anything else. For example, you might say, well, what they're doing, they're playing, but I really don't understand that. And I would say, well, you heard a bird sing, you saw a sunset, do you understand that? Can you describe that and tell me what you know about that? Williams' tone world goes beyond words. Goes right direct to the source, to the heart of the matter, I think. Would you say, William?
Yes.
No, it's, yeah, please.
So, questions?
Questions or answers?
I have lots of questions, but I get their ear all the time. So please, take a moment.
Be bold.
Yeah.
Or just listen to the silence, whatever it is. Just be here now.
All right, what do you want? What would you like to do? Or what would you like other people to do? That's my question. What would you like to do? Or what would you like us to do? Yes.
I'd like to know who they are.
Yell at us.
I said I would like for more people to be comfortable with who they are, to stand on their own as who they are, with imperfections and everything else, and everything works itself out if you stand as yourself.
Right. I said, the only thing that one of my favorite, when my own, God, I'm so embarrassing. But one of the things that I like to think and say is that the only innovation is yourself. Every other innovation, all the things they call are innovations, are either gimmicks or they're an example of someone being truly themselves, but a lot of times it's just gimmicks.
Right, exactly.
But like who you are is amazing. And that we keep on like peeling it back and just like, well, we're not done yet. Oh my God. Whoa.
Well, just make a comment on that. You see, is when we're born and young, the first thing that is sold to us is to buy something that'll make you look beautiful.
Right.
Is to buy this makeup, to put this lipstick on, to buy this, to be hip. We aren't told that we're already there. All we have to do is maintain that and develop it. You see, we all have uniqueness, and the thing is that I have students, and they come to me. They always want to know, well, how can I find my own sound? And I want you to help me develop my sound. And I said, well, finding your sound is like if you're looking over here for your sound, it's not going to be there. Your sound is like your nose, it's already there.
Right.
All you have to do is realize it's there and not let people suck it away from you. And education isn't about bringing individuality. It's about conformity and having you conform to a construct to fit into a box. You see, it's not about developing your individuality. So naturally you have this conflict of feeling uncomfortable in being yourself because you're always told that yourself is just not good enough.
I think that's why your music is so attractive and kind of hits the soul, because it's, first of all, very present, and it kind of weeds out the people that are not present. Either you're present and you can receive that as a gift and it be inspired to, be present yourself, or you're not a part of that, and that's fine, So I think thank you. That was a beautiful moment.
I'm always interested to hear from audience people, like we play all over the place. I'm always interested to hear what people, like somebody might come up. Most of the time I don't necessarily want to talk to musicians. The musicians geek out, it kind of goes in their ego land, like, you sound so great. I don't even want to hear that, I heard that, I heard what you were doing, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times I like to talk to people who maybe heard it for the first time and it just like really opened something up to them. Or we encounter those people who come all the time. They might be a postal worker. And they've been checking out the music now for 15, 17, 35 years, And they don't play an instrument. They just, they're a postal worker. But they get it, And it's always interesting to hear what they have to say. And I guarantee you, every time you talk to a person like that, they will say something very insightful that we take back with us. It's always a give and take. It's a communication, Like it's not a, like we entered that. We entered that patronage time when the kings decided, I need a composer, and they had the court music, and it was theirs, that music was theirs, it belonged to them. That's some serious you talk about appropriation, like those nobles thought they were appropriating the music, but they couldn't. It's impossible. You cannot grasp the human spirit. You can't. that's why I'm not afraid of any kind of, in just the last century we went through like some of the darkest days ever, but how many centuries have we been through where they've been equally as dark? My point is, I'll call them the layperson. The layperson is so hip, they get it. That's who we're happy to play for, playing for everybody, but it's really not, like you say, it's not the recipe. We don't need people to suss out the recipe and tell us how much, cumin we used and salt and pepper and this, that, and the other. It's just about, okay, what are you feeling? Like what is it? Where is it coming from? And what is it doing for you? And I think that's what Patricia is asking. Like it hits us, and it hits us. I'm grateful, like be able to do this. It's a mystery, it hits us. Hopefully it hits you in some kind of way. It makes me make specific decisions. Like information comes as the music is coming. Other things happen too. Like I get other answers to things I'm not even looking for. It's like a form of meditation, in other words. And then things open up, in different ways. And it makes me know, oh, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. I have to speak to this person. I have to deal with this issue. That's what happens. So that's me. It doesn't necessarily have to do that to you. But think about 40 years ago. There was a time when we were in a social climate that Baraka grew up in, where every one of us was socially responsible, or at least we were in that kind of zeitgeist, where it felt like, oh, I got to do something. I heard this music. I heard Jimi Hendrix. Man, I gotta go do something. Or I read this. I read Baraka. I gotta do something. Or I saw this play. I gotta do something.
Do you still think you have to do something?
Yes. Yeah. That's all.
Do you still think you have to do something?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
One thing that I've kind of, well, you just used the word responsibility, and that was something I was just thinking about, that, I'm going to cut you off.
Alright.
When people talk about free jazz, people get this idea that it's, no holds barred, you do whatever you want, and that's not the sense of what you all are talking about here. And no one, just till a moment ago, used the word responsibility, but you're talking about responsibility to the community, responsibility to other musicians, and the music on this level, it's free, but it's also having spent years mastering the instrument and learning how to use it and express oneself and listen to other people and be responsible to a community and an audience, responsible to other musicians. And that's free in the sense that, okay, you're doing what occurs to you in the moment to play. That's free. You're free of whatever, but it's a very responsible thing. It's a very tuned in thing, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of miss when they think of free jazz or even abstract painting or something. It's like, hey, I can throw paint on a canvas, but that's not it. It's about discipline and mastery and really getting to the point where you can listen to other people and respond freely, respond immediately in the moment. And that's, I just lost my train of thought. So.
Richard and then Richard.
Hi everyone, my name is Richard, and I am proud to be part of this community. It was interesting what Gerald said. I was a postal worker for 28 years, and I'm now retired, but I'm one of those laymen. I don't know anything about melody, rhythm, I don't know that stuff, but I get the music. When you play, I feel it, and I hear it here. I mean, I hear it here, but more important, I hear it and feel it here in my heart. And what I've gotten from this community is like a life force. It's extremely important to me. And I'll do anything I can to further it and keep it going. Something else that happened. When you guys started playing, I got the sense that it was spontaneous because there was no written music. You just started wailing. And what I thought about was that what you were doing was taking a leap of faith. You were playing your instrument and just jumping out into the openness and hoping and praying and knowing that the other musicians would hold you and carry you and bring you along, and that when you all got to the bottom, whatever it came out would be okay, because you were all trusting each other. And to get back to what Miriam was saying in the beginning, I think that any given time in civilization is both the worst of times and the best of times. That's just the way it seems to me. But it seems like a particularly difficult time right now in this world, the way we treat each other. So I feel like if everybody just took that leap of faith and jumped out there and trusted each other and knew that people would be there to hold them up and help them and respected each other. And when you talked about what do we want, I want people to treat me the way I want to be treated, the way I want to treat them. I want to reciprocate that. And it doesn't happen a lot. But in this community, I feel that. And this is where I'm going to stay. This is where I feel the love. That's just what I wanted to say.
How do we expand the community? How can we enlarge the community? How can we support the community? Like I said, the audience is certainly, for me, as important as the musicians here on the stage. But we've got to think about enlarging the community. How can we do it? How can we support it financially? How can we support it emotionally? Whatever. Would anybody like to?
I think I'm Jasmine, and hi everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who contributed to create this moment, and for everyone expressing your voices, your hearts, and bringing your whole being here in this present moment. I guess just to reply, I think one thing is I think somebody's work, maybe it's not the work of this body, but somebody's work needs to be to get instruments to the people, poor people, brown people, people all over. People need accessibility to the instruments to have an appreciation for the art. I think that somewhere along the way, jazz music, musicianship, all those things are becoming inaccessible to the people who birthed it, to their great grandchildren. It has become something that's so, upper class, middle class, high and mighty. And and I think that, that's one thing, is that somebody's work is to get those instruments to all people, particularly to people in the worst and the hardest of times, because hard times birth great music, and I think that has always been true. And then secondly, I would like to say, well, actually there's a few things. One thing that I really appreciate and experience with you all playing is that the music is singing through you. You're not necessarily singing the song, singing the music, really just allowing the story, the textures, the quilt to come through you in a very present way. And I see and witness, I can see how you make love. I can see how you relate, how you solve conflict, you know, how you approach it. I can see how you care for yourself through your musicianship, through what you lay out, you know, right here live. And I really appreciate that vulnerability. And I think a lot about when I hear great music and I hear great stories in general, what is the relation to your lifestyle, your self-care practice? You know, how does your musicianship, your musicality inform your, or speak to your daily life? You know, literally how you care for yourself, how you express yourself, how you relate to others. Your relationships that you have with your individual instruments and your voice, you know, in your musicianship. I'm sure along the way and throughout your life you've felt, you know, just the way I do this thing is the way that I do other things in my life, and I'm so curious to hear anything like that if you guys have anything to share.
Odessa Baptist?
Well, usually, historically, a lot of musicians who played jazz music died at an early age. Some, you know, John Coltrane didn't make it to 40. Albert Ayler didn't make it to 40. Eric Dolphy didn't make it to 40. Charlie Parker didn't make it to 40, and I go down the list. Because, you know, life was hard. Life was harder in the 50s. And if you were black in the 50s, whether you played music or not, I mean, if you were living in the South, you could walk down the street and somebody could say, "Come here, boy, we're gonna lynch you." You know, so your life expectancy was shorter. And, but nowadays, musicians are aware of how to eat better, how not to use drugs or smoke or excessive drinking when they feel it's bad for their health, and trying to get a flow with the way they play and the way they live for longevity. I mean, Marshall Allen with Sun Ra's Orchestra just turned 90. Yusef Lateef was 93 when he died. And Cecil Taylor was 85, Ornette Coleman was 84. So you see you have evidence of a longer life, although in general, you know, people are living longer nowadays. But musicians are aware of their lifestyle, and due to lack of not having health care for years, musicians have always used herbs and natural healing because they didn't have health care. So they've always done that and used herb teas and to in a preventive way and also in an active way.
I have something to say. Let me know if this doesn't make sense. Okay. Bebop, let's use bebop in particular because it was considered radical. You know, up until that time, swing music was popular music of the time. You know, it was on the radio, it was selling, no problem. Big bands everywhere, touring, you know, no problem. Lots of clubs. This music came along, it was hard to understand. It was the new generation of people who weren't gonna follow the rules of their uncles or their fathers. You know, we were progressing towards civil rights, weren't there yet, but there were plenty of people, even from 100 years before, who were willing to just stand up and not take it, like as Joe said. You know, always those kind of people. All right, so those people were dealing with a whole lot of variables, right? They made some choices. Yeah, being black was very difficult. Being any color was very difficult in the 40s, post depression and such. Trying to play this music, community. It was a community, right? What entered into it? Some unhealthy, you said self-care, some very unhealthy practices, you know, life-threatening types of things that we all know about, with the tobacco and the drugs and even the alcohol, you know, or even progressive abuse, both to self and to others, right? So, but one thing I can guarantee you, those people who were in that community, they were like, this is a life or death situation. This is our lifestyle. You know, music is not just music, it's life. Music is life. All right, fast forward to now. It's hard to, I mean, we don't necessarily identify with that too much, but who do we identify with that? Easily the hip hop crew, right? How do we know them? By the way they dress, right? I mean, everybody's affected by hip hop. You know, like it's a valid and good progression in the music. A lot of times we have problem with the way the people are dressing, because along with that comes some attitudes. All right, what's your attitude? How do you feel about women? How do you feel about your fellow, the person right next to you? You know, are you going, you know, you care about it, you gonna blow them away? Or do you even care? It's a lot of good stuff. I mean, hip hop is great. I mean, it's neutral. The way I think about it, it's neutral. But to them, they think in the same way as their great grandfathers thought. It's a lifestyle, right? Now think about this. What are all of these businesses trying to sell us now? What do they say? Social apps for lifestyle living. You know, lifestyle this, lifestyle that, right? They're modeling, you know, Google's going after us. They will model, like, whatever you like. Oh, I like this, that, and the other. It'll show up while you're surfing, right? Lifestyle. They're determining your lifestyle for you. You and he said, if you don't determine your own lifestyle, if you don't determine what you want and what's important to you, somebody else is going to do it for you, and without you even really knowing it. So musicians are an easy target. Artists are an easy target. Big bullseye, because we're different, you know, but everybody's different. Everybody is a unique individual, and everybody has, the reason we're different is we decide, oh, that's not me. I'm not going to wear that checkered print jacket. I'm not going to play this way because they say play. I'm not going to go do because I'm supposed to, or that's going to give me a gig. I'm going to play what I hear. Lifestyle choice. And then that throws us into something else. You decide your decisions. We are like all these concentric circles. We're meeting up, you know, and that's the beauty of life, because then like everybody, Rich is a postman. Like he could tell me a whole lot about music, a whole lot about the history. Like you're lucky because you experience a different kind of community. You experience the old school community where we wouldn't even be here. If this were a club, we would just be socializing, right? And meeting each other. But what are we doing? We're talking about how to keep this thing perpetuating, as opposed to just going out to a club and perpetuating that. Those places aren't there anymore. Some are, but for the most part, they're not. So this is the next best thing. I'm so glad that record companies are going down, because that means artists have to do what they want, what they have to do, and they're not being prevented from doing what the producers didn't want them to do because it would make them money. So all I say is that's how I answer your question. Lifestyle. Think about the kind of lifestyle that you want for yourself.
I'm allowed to.
We're gonna. Too much fun is just too much fun, right? I need to get you guys to come back. So I have so much I want to talk about, but I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna keep it to myself, and we're gonna do this again next month. Thank you so much. Please, as we, yes, just gonna get the basket, because that's how we thrive on donations.
Well, no,
Let me introduce Boomy. Fumi is gonna walk amongst you. And she's a young, beautiful woman. And she has a basket. And the
And
basket
she'll be
is
giving out dollar
very
bills to all of you.
And so, okay, so she's just gonna walk amongst you and,
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for sharing.
all those little blue cards, you know, little blue, I'm sorry. The little blue bookmarks have like a description of all our programs and I have information for you. Let's do, yeah, let's do one.
Next month, sorry.
Oh, it's lovely. Me too.